What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of a movie that just came out for Epix. That's a Epix original you can rent for $6.99 right now. It's called Unhuman. Let's check it out. So I saw the trailer for this movie a while ago, about 3-4 weeks ago. Have been kind of hesitant on watching it. It's a teen Zomedy. This is an Epix original film, but it is also a Blumhouse production. So it's probably like, they were like, hey, we'll churn out a movie for you and then you can put it on your streaming service. They've been kind of doing films that are kind of like on the cheap, but have like, catchy, fun dialogue and stuff like that to try to boost it up a little bit. Pretty interesting names attached to this. For one, you got Marcus Dunstan, who is the writer and director of The Collector, which I actually really enjoy The Collector more than I do The Collection, which he also did direction and writing for. He's done a lot of writing, more than he has directing, but those are some of the bigger ones that he's done. And he got a little bit of help from Patrick Melton, who also has worked on like the Saw series, like 4, 5, 6, and 7, I think. And he also did Piranha 3D, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and more. So what is this movie all about? Well, it's about a group of kids who get on a bus and actually go to some sort of extra credit thing that they needed to get better grades in school. And on the way, they have an accident, and so begins the zombie apocalypse. Pretty typical story starting it out. It's a kind of a coming of age story about a bunch of kids and them not getting along and sort of finding their way. That's tucked in there somewhere. And there's, of course, a very big twist somewhere about halfway through the film or right before the third act. But these kids are forced to hold up in a nearby building, find out more than they realize as this Zomedy is unfolding. Now, this is a little bit more on the dramatic side as far as like teen comedies go. I have to admit, I'm not the target demographic for this movie, clearly. I think it's going to hit with a younger crowd a little bit more. Although I will say that I don't really know that the schools have the same sort of dynamic as they did when I went to school. Meaning, like, the jocks don't just pick on the, the nerdy kids and, the typical sort of like 80s, 90s tropic kind of thing. And I wonder how schools are compared to what us older folks like me think and then write about when we make movies or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, do these guys have a lock on what it's like to be in school these days? Because part of me feels like this movie is a little out of touch with how schools are these days, but then again, what do I know? So in other words, I kind of feel like it's almost a little too tropey for the old style of school versus what it's actually like today. So that may have been something that you will notice in this movie. Maybe if you're a younger person and you watch these kind of movies, maybe you can fill me in, because I'd be curious to see if this is a better representation of school these days or not. But this movie is not exactly the funniest. It's not exactly the most thrilling. They definitely try to spice it up to make it look like, real stylistic and for that kind of fun atmosphere, but it kind of misses it by a lot. And by the time you get to the twist of the movie, it's just going to become so unrealistic that you may not be able to even stay on board for it. I was kind of rolling my eyes by the end of the movie quite a bit, unfortunately. But again, I'm not the target demographic, but there was just so many holes in the plot at the end. It just didn't make a lot of sense as to why this was happening. Even if it was different for a film to do in some regards, it seems so elaborate for it to pop off like it does. And the surprise is not that interesting. It's different, but just not for me. There are some, zombies that are running around all aggro and causing problems. Some of the kids that you meet are kind of annoying, but not really. They're okay. Just some of the motivations that they have and sort of the coming of age during this crisis sort of thing feels a little, so it becomes like very unbelievable in a lot of ways, and you really have to suspend your disbelief to kind of hang on. For me, it just doesn't fly. And I think that It could have been written a little bit better. I know that they were trying to cram a lot into one small movie, you know, an hour and a half long. It almost feels like it could have been like a 2-hour movie, although I'm glad it wasn't personally. But you know what I mean? Like maybe they could have expanded it more so it didn't feel as rushed when the characters are coming of age, you know, and figuring out who they are. Because, you know, those kind of teen movies always have that, you know, oh, I'm the meek, quiet person, but I've been put through this crazy situation and now I'm a leader, you know, or I'm a sad person and now I'm actually kind of, you know, in charge and I'm doing things that are pretty cool. I might be the hero. It just kind of is overplayed a little bit in this movie, and I think it just does not suit my particular interests. You know, for a movie, it's not a bad watch, I guess, if you're just like kind of wanting to watch something, but by the end of the movie, it just kind of ruined it for me. And granted, they're writing this specifically for teens, so again, I may not be that person, but you know, I can still kind of get into stuff and feel the vibe of something like that. There was a lot of times that I felt like it could have been edited a little bit more to kind of make some of the jokes land a little bit better. Some of the reactions of the acting and the actors and actresses was a little bland at times, and it could have used maybe like a second or third run of that scene to make it just stand out a little bit more. I definitely prefer the collector over this. I prefer the collection over this, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the collection because it felt like a Saw movie. But the collector is just like so condensed and so personal, and it's got like a great soundtrack and visuals and stuff like that. And I feel like this one just is just kind of bland. So I would probably give this movie like a 5 out of 10, maybe even a 4.5. It's just not for me, not something that I would necessarily watch again. For a lot of people, I think it's going to be lower on the scale, but you know, maybe some younger kids might get into it a little bit more than I did. So, but that's pretty much what I think about the movie. It's $6.99 right now, a little on the pricey side. I don't really think it's worth renting it necessarily right now, personally. That's why I do this, so that you guys can see if it's something for you. And if you have seen it, though, I would love to hear what you think about it. If you haven't, does it seem interesting to you? Are you going to give it a whirl? Have you seen the trailer? And were you curious about it? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this review, please hit the like and subscribe button and the little bell notification so you know when I got a new one out. But other than that, thanks so much for coming by. And as always, long live the void.